let's talk about async tasks. Async tasks are the tasks which execute in the background of the activity. Okay, service executes in the background, but the service executes independent of the activity, whereas the async task runs in the background but it is bounded to the activity which is called it. These tasks work asynchronously without disturbing the user. Async tasks and services have one difference. Services run in the background of the device, while async tasks run in the background of the activity. Okay, so whenever you create a service, the service will be running in the background of the device. That is, it is independent of the activity, while async tasks run in the background of the activity. Whenever you close the activity, the async task gets closed automatically. Okay, the async task is used to perform background operations like constantly querying a website, getting the results and putting them on the screen. For example, if you have seen the application for Facebook on the cell phone, whenever you click on login, the screen does not hang, but it shows a loading button. Okay, that loading button has been started with the help of the async task. Whenever all the data has been fetched, the loading button gets disappeared and you get the content in the front of the screen. Okay, that is done with the help of the async task because it will take a finite amount of time to send the request on the servers of Facebook and retrieve that request and display the data on the output screen. Okay, that is why you use the async task. Async tasks are often called to be the thread replacement for Android because you cannot create threads with Android which perform UI operations. That is why you have to use async tasks for that. Let's use an async task. Suppose we need to get the RSS feeds from an online PHP portal and update the same in a list view. For example, if you have created a chatting application and that chatting application must be available worldwide, that is, if I post a comment from here, everyone using that application should be able to see that comment. We have a single type of application that can do that. That application will be using the async task. What we'll be doing is whenever I'll be click on the post button from my cell phone, that post must go online and be posted on my PHP MySQL server. The PHP MySQL server must set a flag. Our application must read that flag continuously with the help of the async task. If that flag is set it from 0 to 1, then we should fetch all the data from the PHP server and must display that data onto our screen. Okay, so for this we need to create an async task and keep checking the PHP portal in an infinite while loop. So if the PHP portal is updated by any user, then you must be able to fetch all the feeds from that user and display those feeds on your output screen. That is fine. If there are any updates on the PHP portal, then the list view must be updated with the content. For this, we need the following. We need a database flag which must be set once there's an update. So on the MySQL database, you will be having a table. Inside that table, you'll be having a field called as flag. If that flag goes from 0 to 1, that indicates someone has posted content on your website. So that flag has to be scanned forever. The same flag must be reset to 0 when we have read the update. Means whenever you are reading the update, at that time you must set that flag to 0 and code to read this flag continuously. You must have a code that should read this thing continuously. So let's do this thing. To create an async task, we must perform the given steps. You create an inner class which must extend the async task class. Now, as you have understood that async tasks are for an activity, whenever you are creating an activity, inside the activity you must create an inner class, that is a class inside a class, and you must extend that class with the help of the async task class. The class takes three parameters. First is the task parameter. The task parameter is used whenever the task is being performed. The update parameter is used whenever there is an update on the task, and the return parameter is used whenever the task is complete. Okay, so just assume that you are starting a task. Before starting a task, whatever parameters you want to pass to the task, you will pass them through the task parameter. Whenever the task is updating itself, or whenever there is an update from the task, then you will be getting an update parameter. And whenever the task is finished, then you will have the return parameter. I hope this is clear to you. The task must implement do in background method, which contains the code that executes in background. Okay, so inside our class we must have a method called as do in background. That do in background method will contain all the code to do the task in the background. The do in background method is a non-UI method. A non-UI method indicates it cannot update the UI. Okay, so to update the UI, you have to have a publish progress function. Whenever you call the publish progress function, the progress function will publish the progress of your task to the Android OS. The Android OS will in turn call the on progress update method of the same class. So now you have two methods inside your class. One is do in background. The do in background method is a non-UI method. A non-UI method or a non-user interface method indicates that you cannot perform any user interface updations from that method. But whenever something is updated from the background activity or the background task, you must call a method called as publish progress. That publish progress method will call the on progress update method. The on progress update method is a UI method. A UI method means that the method can update the user interface. So the on progress update method will update the interface for you. So any UI updations must be done inside the on progress update method. Let's create an async task. We'll create a project with the name async task demo and make the layout look like this. You have a text view which is LBL messages and a list view with LST wall post. As you can see, you don't have like any button over here because you don't have to click on a button to get the updates. You will be getting the updates continuously as and when the user updates them. So in the main Java code, we will write the following subclass that will be used to update the wall post. Inside the main activity class, after the onCreate method, you have to create this class by saying public class check wall posts extends async task. The async tasks take three arguments. The first argument is the context, second argument is the string, and third argument is void. The first argument was the task argument that is called whenever the task is being created. The second argument is an update argument which is called whenever there is an update. And the third argument is a return argument which is given whenever the task is finished executing. So in our case, whenever we are starting to execute our task, at that time we require the context because the context will indicate which application has to be updated. The second argument is a string because whenever there will be any updations from the class, those updations will be in the form of a string. That is, all the messages that you will get will be in form of a string. And this task is running forever. That is, the task is never ending. That is why the return argument is a void. We'll have the context over here. The do in background method will be called whenever you will be doing something in the background. So what you will do is, whatever context has been passed from here will come inside the context array. Inside this context array, you will be taking the argument inside the ctx variable, and you will have an infinite while loop. The infinite while loop will go to the get flag status.php file. This get flag status.php file will return me a 0 or a 1. It will return me a 0 in case there is no updation from the user. It will return me a 1 in case the user updates something on the internet. So we'll execute the query on the internet and we'll get the response from that URL. If we get the response as 1, we'll compare it by saying res.equals 1. We cannot do res is double equal to 1 because in Java you have to, if you want to compare two values, then you have to use res.equals. Similarly, if that value is equal to 1, then you will fetch all the records from the database by saying async demo /select all.php. The select all.php will select all the records. you will get all the records by execute query method. The execute query method has already been covered in the last class where we had the query executing from our Android phone to the PHP server. The execute query method contains HTTP client, HTTP get, HTTP response, HTTP entity, and buffer reader methods. Then we have the fields. The result that we get, we split that result with the help of the EOR. The EOR was the end of record character. The EOR character is a separator for each of the message in our case. So we'll separate all the records with the EOR character and we'll get all the fields over here. Now we have to update these fields in the database. We cannot perform any UI updations inside our do in background method. So we have to now call the publish progress method, and to the publish progress method we have to pass all the fields. So what we'll do is we'll say publish progress fields. This will publish the progress, that is it will pass all the fields to a method. That method will be actually updating the user interface as and when you want. So far so good. So we have covered the do in background method. The do in background method will just check for the flag. If the flag is set to 1, it will get all the results, and all the results will then be updated on the list view with the help of publish progress method. Whenever the publish progress method is called, the Android OS will call the on progress published or on progress updated method. That method will be updating the UI of the Android application. So let's have the method over here. Whenever you have the publish progress method is called, at that time the Android OS will internally call on progress update method that will perform all the UI updations. Okay, so we'll have on progress update. After the do in background we have on progress update. The on progress update contains all the string values. We have to do a simple task over here. We have to simply get the list view, and in the list view we have to say set adapter, new array adapter, and pass all the values inside the list view. So whenever someone calls publish progress, that publish progress method will internally call the on progress update method. The on progress update method is a user interface method, that is you can update your list view inside the on progress update method. In case there is an exception, we'll just toast that exception at the output. And we have taken the context in the do in background method. That context will be used inside the on progress update method whenever we have to use the argument of context. So far so good. We'll be checking out our execute query method. We have execute query. We'll have the HTTP client, the get request will be having the URL inside it. We'll be getting the response of it. Once we get the response of it, we'll get the entity out of it, and then we'll read the content of the entity by saying http entity.get content and passing it to buffered reader. Then we'll read the line from the buffered reader output, and we'll close the buffered reader. We'll keep everything as null and we'll return the result that we had obtained. In case there is an exception, we'll return a null argument. This was very usual that we had already covered in the previous classes. So we get the HTTP client, the get, the response, the entity. We read this response with the help of the buffered reader. We get the line, that is the br.readLine argument will get us the complete output of the HTML code or the PHP code. That output will be given to the str. We'll close the buffered reader. We'll free all the memory and we'll return this string from the function. So far so good. Now we have created the async task. Now let's invoke the async task inside the onCreate method. Inside the onCreate method, we must write the following code so that the async task has been invoked. We'll have lst wall post. We have to do this because we have to take the reference of the list view. And we have to create an object of the check wall post class. The check wall post class was the class that we had just completed. Then we will say chk.execute this. The meaning of this is this activity's context. So we will say chk.execute this. It will execute the doInBackground method inside the check_world_push class. The doInBackground method will call publish_progress. The publish_progress method will call onProgress_updated, and that onProgress_updated will update this list view. And as we are using the PHP code, so we have to add the internet permissions to the manifest in order to complete the application. Otherwise, whenever you will be trying to access the PHP code from your application, at that time your project will do a forced close. So as to avoid that forced close, you have to add the internet permissions. Let's do it in actual practice and check out the application in running. I have not given you the PHP codes over here, but the PHP codes will be done whenever we'll be doing this application. Let's do it for the Async Task demo. To run the Async Task demo, we have to first go to a browser and we have to modify our database a bit. Inside our database, we have TBL or DBF stored information. Inside this, we have to create a new table. The table's name should be TBL flag. We'll give the number of columns as 1. Over here, we'll just give flag an integer value of length 1. We'll save it. Normally, the flag will just contain one record. I'll just insert a record with the value 0 over here. This indicates that we have a flag with a value 0 in the database. There are more elegant ways to do it, but for demonstration purposes, I am just taking a table. Inside the table, I am just creating a flag, and a flag should be valued 0. Whenever someone inserts or updates or deletes the database, at that time this flag should be set as 1. And whenever this flag is 1, at that time we'll read all the information from the database and display that thing at the output. For that, we have to create a new file inside our MySQL demo folder. We'll create the file over here as get flag status.php. What this file simply does is, this file simply creates a PHP request, and whenever this file has been called, this file will check if the flag has been 1 or not. If the flag was 1, then the file will give the output to the user as 1 and make the flag 0. This is very important to make the flag 0, because at every time you will check the flag status, and if it is found to be 1, then the user will update that thing on the cell phone screen, else it will not update on the cell phone screen. So you have to keep the updations to the minimum. That is why we have to first check if the flag is 1. If the flag is 1, then you have to echo a 1 from here and make the flag as 0. For that, we'll say include ones mysql library.php. We'll create a query equals to select star from tbl flag. I have the name of database is fine. That is fine perfectly. Then we'll say mysql start, and we'll get the result by saying search database with the query. We will check if the result of 0 of the value flag, that is inside the TBL flag, a flag, if the value of the flag was double equal to 1, then I will echo a 1 from here, else I will echo a 0 from here. Then we will say MySQL end. But when I have echoed a 1, at that time I have to update the status of the flag. So I will say query equals to update TBL flag set flag equals to 0. Now we have to execute the query, pressing execute query. This should be done because if the flag was found 1, then you have to make the flag 0 so that the user does not always keeps on querying the database. So far so good. Now we'll go to our insert file or the index.php file. Over here, whenever someone inserts his or her information, at that time what we'll be doing is we'll be setting the flag to be 1, so that whenever the user has encountered a new information on the server, at that time that information must be updated inside the actual device. For that, what we'll be doing is, if the execute query was perfectly executed and the user was signed up successfully, then we can set up the flag to be 1. So what we'll do is we'll have a query update tbl flag set flag equals to 1. Hope that's fine. We'll update tbl flag and set flag equals to 1. We'll say execute query. I pass the query over here. So far so good. So whenever someone inserts a record from the index.php file, the information about that record must be present inside the actual Android code. So what we'll be doing is we'll be saying file new Android application project. Let's give the project name as async task demo, package name as com.fitech.async task demo, the build SDK as Android 2.3.1. Uncheck on this. Next, next. The title name as async task demo. Click on finish. We'll get the async task application. Over here, we'll first change the layout to be linear layout. We don't require any button because the application will be running in the background always in keeping a check on the database. We'll be having a text view over here that will just have the text on it to be recent users who signed up. That's fine. Then we have a list view at the bottom. So we'll have composite and the list view. Change the ID of the list view to lst users. That's fine. Let's change the height and width to match parent. That's fine with us. Okay. Now let's go to the main Java code. And over here, we should have an inner class for the async task. So what we'll do, we'll say class async task demo extends. We'll say async task. Async task requires 3 arguments. First is the task parameter, then the progress parameter and the output parameter. We'll give the task parameter as context, the progress parameter as a string, and no result, so we'll have a void because we will not be having any result from this, and this will be running in the background forever. We'll just import the context and we'll add the methods that it requires. We have 3 methods over here. The first method is do in background. The do in background method should perform all the non-UI operations, that is the operations which do not require any user interface. We'll first have the context over here, so as to get the context inside this. So we'll say context equals to params of 0. Why params of 0? Because the context dot 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 indicates that params is a array of context. Okay, the triple dot in this indicates ellipsis. This actually means that you can pass n number of parameter arguments or n number of context arguments with the do in background method. Once we are done with this, then we'll have a while true loop. Inside this, we'll have a function. That function should keep on checking for the updations in the flag status. So we'll say string URL equals to http://10.0.2.2:85. 85 is the port number in my case. After 85, we require practice MySQL demo get flag status.php. Let's do that. We'll say practice /MySQL demo /get flag status.php. Will get me the flag status. Then we'll execute the query and we'll get the result out of it. So we'll say string result equals to execute query and pass the URL. We have to define the execute query method. We'll do that over here. We'll say string public string execute query. Let's pass the string URL over here. This method is very standard now. We have to just simply say HTTP client HTTP equals new default HTTP client HTTP get equals to new HTTP get. We'll pass the URL over here. Once we are done with that, then we have to get the response. So we'll say HTTP response equals to http.execute, and that's the get request that we want to execute. Once we are done with this, then we have to actually perform the output of this. As you can see, it's giving me an error. The error is because I have not given a try catch, because the execute method can throw an exception in case there is no internet connection. So we'll just copy this thing up and paste it over here. That's fine. Once we are done, then we'll get the HTTP entity. Say HTTP entity equals to HTTP response dot get entity. Then we'll have the buffered reader. BR equals to new buffered reader new input stream reader. Then we'll say HTTP entity dot get content. It will get me the content from that. Then I will get the result by saying string result equals to br dot readline. I'll just return this result from here. In case there is an exception, I also return nothing. Once we are done, then we can say if result dot equals 1. This indicates that we are getting some parameters from the URL. Once we get the parameter as 1 from the URL, then we can actually update the list view. But list view is a UI component, and async task and this on or do in background is on a non-UI thread. Okay, so you cannot perform any UI operations. So we need to use the publish progress method to perform UI changes. Okay, so we have to use the publish progress method. Before that, we'll get all the information from the URL by saying URL equals to http://10.0.2.85/practice/mysql demo/select all.php. Okay, so it will get me all the results. Then I'll say string result, or let me guess again say result equals to execute query, and let me give the URL over here. The result will be separated by a EOR character, so I'll say string records equals to result dot split with the help of the EOR character. That was very basic as we did last time. Then we have to simply say publish progress and give the records over here. It will publish the progress for me. Okay, and whenever you call publish progress, then there is a method called as on progress update. As you can see, the on progress update method runs on the user interface thread after the publish progress is invoked. So as soon as you have invoked the publish progress, the on progress update gets called, and in the on progress update you can do the user interface operations. So we'll say on progress update. Over here we just have to perform a small task. We have to just get the list view, and from the list view we have to simply enter all the items inside the list view. So we'll first have the reference of the list view. Let's assume that the name of the list view was LST, and we will define that list view at the top of the class. So we'll say list view LST items. Let's do over here LST items dot set adapter new array adapter. Let's give the context as CTX, which we had captured last time. Then we'll say android.r.layout. Simple list item 1, and the items will be inside values. Once we're done with this, we have to just simply say string over here it will actually put all the values inside the list items, and this will be the progress update of the async task. We have completed the class async task demo. Then let's invoke the class over here first. So that's step 1, get the references. For that we'll say lst items equals to list view, find view by id r.id.lst users. That's fine. Then we can simply say async task demo atd equals to new async task demo. We can simply say atd dot execute. It requires the context. We have to pass the context as main activity dot this. It will actually start execution of the async task. This async task will call do in background. Do in background will check the flag status. The get flag status.php file has been done by us. If the flag was 1, it will put the output as 1 and it will set the flag to 0. If the flag status was 1, then we'll call the select all method. The select all method is over here. It will get all the records separated by EOR character. So we will split them with the help of the EOR and we will say publish progress. We'll publish the progress by going to on progress update. Inside the on progress update, we can have all the UI operations. So we have set the adapter for the list items to be the values, and whenever we insert anything from the Android or from the index.php file, and in that case the flag status will be updated to 1. Let's test this application in actual practice. The application will force close when we run that thing because we have not added the manifest internet permissions. So we'll go to the manifest, go to the permissions, say add, give this permission. Over here, give the permission name as internet. Okay, until we don't do this, the application will not run properly. So right click on the async demo, run as Android application, go to the emulator, start the emulator over here. As you can see, the application is running, and now what we'll do is we'll go to the index.php file inside our main localhost. So we'll go to practice and go to MySQL demo. Let's insert a user. I'll just minimize this thing and take the emulator in the front so that we can actually get the output of the application running, and we'll get this thing running. Okay, now these two things are over here. I just got these two things together so as to show you that whenever someone signs up, at the same time you will be able to get the output on the screen. Let's sign up a user called as Gauri, password as Gauri, the age as 13, contact as some number, and let's give the address as IT Park, other information as none. Let me give sign up. As you can see, as soon as we signed up, information of all the users came over here, and the latest user, that was Gauri, also came over here. This was because whenever I clicked on sign up, the TBL flag was set to 1. This device was constantly querying the flag. As soon as the flag turned to 1, it made the flag as 0 and selected all the records from database. To give you a small demo once again, let me give Jayesh and Jayesh again. Give the age as 29, contact as 98098 whatever. Give the address as JP Town. Give the other information as reading books. I'll just sign up again. As you can see, we haven't done anything on the device, but as soon as we do something on the server, that information is updated directly on the client. So that is how async tasks work in actual practice.